Have you ever noticed that when we chase or pursue something, it almost feels like somehow it evades us? While some people seem to attract everything they want almost effortlessly. Well, one thing that contributes to that is our ability to let go. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. 3 secrets to letting go that are unique and different from all of the other noise that you're hearing out there. So hang with me, let's dive in. Hey, what's up, my friend? My name is Kanae. I'm an entrepreneur, and I literally went from working in a coffee shop for minimum wage to creating now multiple 7 and even 8-figure businesses. And I share content on my channel from stuff that I've learned and applied that's helped me create that transformation in hopes that it'll help you save some time and energy in creating your own transformation as well, whether you are looking for transformation personally, professionally, or both. With that said, in this video, we're gonna talk about 3 secrets to letting go. And some of the stuff that I'm gonna share here, you probably haven't heard anywhere else. First, though, it's going to be important to understand why is letting go so critical in the process. Well, let me start with a simple example that you can probably relate to. Have you ever been on a date with somebody who came across really desperate? Or maybe you've been in a sales situation where the salesperson came across as very needy. Well, if you have, then you can probably relate to the fact that neither of those experiences are very attractive. So how then can you attract what you want into your life if you're showing up in a way that's pretty unattractive? And we can also go back to Newton's third law of physics, that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Means if we're chasing something, well then probably that thing that we're chasing is also running away. So let's dive into these 3 secrets to help us let go and create more of what it is that we want. All right, secret number 1 is to diminish the fantasy that you have about the thing that you're trying to acquire in life. And what do I mean by that? Well, notice that when we have something that we want, that we desire, we tend to create a fantasy about it. In other words, we see all of the positive, none of the negative, all of the benefit, none of the drawback, all of the good, none of the bad about having that thing. And that's a fantasy because, in case you haven't noticed, we live in a universe built on duality. That means for every positive, there's a negative. For every benefit, there's a drawback. And this is, by the way, one of my big beefs with the whole personal development arena is because there's so much rhetoric out there trying to convince us that the goal in life is to be one side without the other. Be always kind, never cruel. Always happy, never sad. Always positive, never negative. Always peaceful, never wrathful. And that is just absolute bullshit. The goal in life is to realize that both sides serve us, and that's how we live a whole life. Now, when it comes to the things that we're trying to acquire in life, notice that when we see one side without the other, we have a fantasy. And when we have a fantasy, we tend to attract a nightmare in order to wake us up to our fantasy. Now, that nightmare might come in the form of us not having the thing. Notice that when you really, really want something, every day that you wake up and it is absent, you are less fulfilled, less happy. It's another day of, oh man, I wish I had that thing that I really, really want. In that sense alone, it is a form of a nightmare. Or you can probably relate to this. Hey, you think back on a time in life where you really, really, really wanted something, and then once you finally got it, you realized it wasn't as cool as you originally thought it was gonna be. That's another version of attracting a nightmare, because our minds are eventually going to seek balance, equilibration. And so when we get that thing that we thought that we really, really wanted, we realize, oh man, but it comes with all these downsides too. That's the mind coming back to balance, because the universe is ultimately seeking balance. So as you might have noticed, when somebody has a fantasy about something, we're more emotionally driven. You know, if we get close to it, we get excited. If we get further away from it, we get depressed. We're emotionally driven in this state. And people that are emotionally driven are, quite frankly, less attractive. You're gonna find that the people that are most attractive, that tend to attract what they want, are more grounded, centered, and certain. People who are grounded, centered, and certain have a balanced perception. They can see that, yes, I want that thing, and it's going to come with some drawbacks. It's gonna come with some prices to pay. In other words, I want to be in a relationship. I can also see that it means I'm gonna give up some of my freedom and autonomy. I'm gonna have to give up some of my time that I usually spend doing these other things that I enjoy in order to invest in that relationship. It's gonna come with some challenges, some communication issues, some work that needs to be invested, and so on and so forth. When you think about the income that you want to create, I can promise you from firsthand experience that creating more money comes with more expectations, more responsibilities, more challenges along the way. So if we want to be more attractive of that thing that we want, then be more grounded, poised, and certain. If you want to be more grounded, poised, and certain, have a balanced perception about that thing that you're trying to acquire, rather than living in the fantasy that when you get it, everything's going to be good, everything's going to be happy, it's going to be always positive, never negative. Because my friend, that is a load of BS. Secret number 2 is to be grateful for the form that it's already in, that thing that you want to acquire or attract into your life. This goes back to the law of conservation, which we've probably all heard of. It's the law that states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it is only transformed. Notice that while we've all heard that said before, we still tend to perceive things like gain and loss. In other words, we think that in order for us to have what we want, we've got to gain it, and then once we have it, we better hold on to it because we might lose it. Now that's a world that the masses live in. The masses live in a world of gain and loss, but a master of life knows that nothing can be gained nor lost. It is only transformed. What do I mean by that? We'll take it one step further. What it means is nothing is missing in our life. That thing that you want to attract is not missing. It's our perception of it's missing that is causing our suffering. Let's take this and apply it to real life. Here's a simple example. Have you ever heard of a love list before? There's a lot of people out there on the internet, talking about the law of attraction. We say that if you want to attract your ideal spouse, your ideal relationship, what you should do is make a list of all of the characteristics and traits that you would love to attract in that person. Now, I'll give it some credit there. I mean, it's definitely better than just saying, I'd love to meet somebody awesome. This definitely gives you more clarity about the type of person that you want to attract into your life. But notice that at the same time that you're writing down this list, indirectly what you're saying is that this is what's missing in my life. But it's not missing. It's just in a form that we haven't recognized yet. So here's what that might look like. If we want to take this one level further and actually see the law of conservation taking place, we might go through this list of characteristics and traits. For example, let's start with one at the top, just a random one. We'll call it loyal. And I might ask myself, well, where in my life do I have people that are loyal? And I'll be able to write out some names of people that are loyal. Maybe I want to attract somebody who's funny. Well, then I might ask myself, well, where do I in my life already have people who are funny? And I'll start writing down some more names of the people who are funny. Maybe I want to attract somebody who's, good looking. Well, where do I already have people in my life who are good looking? And on as you go through this list, what you would see is that none of these characteristics and traits are missing. They're already present in your life. They're just present in the form of many different people. You're searching for it in the form of one person, but it's actually in the form of many people. This, by the way, is called the law of the one and the many. From the many come the one, from the one come the many. Now, this is a complex law. I'm not going to be able to explain it in this simple video. But have you ever noticed that when you're with the one, you tend to think about the many, and when you have the many, you tend to long for the one? And we see this play out in many different ways in life. In fact, one might even argue that this law supersedes all other laws. But again, I digress. Getting back to the point. The point here is simple. Nothing is missing. It's just in a form that we haven't yet recognized. Let's give you another example to work off of. If we want to attract more money, well, why do you want more money in your life? Well, probably you want more money because of these things that you think that it's going to do for you. Maybe you'll have more luxurious experiences. Maybe you'll travel more. Maybe you'll get more free time. Well, if you look at it, you're going to see that all of those things technically exist in your life, just again in a different form, right? If you want more free time, then you might ask yourself, well, where do I already have free time in my life? And look for the places in your life, maybe even ones that seem insignificant, where you do actually get some free time to yourself. If you say, oh, I'd like to have more luxurious experiences. Well, what are some of the luxurious experiences that you're having right now? Like, have you taken into account the fact that if you're on the internet right now watching this video, you've got it pretty much better off than the vast majority of every human being on planet Earth. Notice those little luxuries that we tend to take for granted because we're so busy longing for the something that's out there rather than being grateful and present with what's right here. If you want to travel more often, as an example, what are some cool things that I've already done in terms of traveling? Or what are some travel experiences that I get to participate in right now? Notice that if you are on the internet right now, you can go look up beautiful places all over the world and see amazing picturesque views of places most people will never get to visit. That is a luxury, again, in and of itself, that most people don't have. When you jump online and play a video game, aren't you kind of traveling into almost a different world? And hey, we're even seeing this at a whole nother level today as we continue to explore things like the metaverse. So notice that in our own ways, you are probably already traveling. And if you keep making this list, you're going to see that the things that you think are missing that money is going to solve, all of those things currently exist in your life, just in a form that you haven't yet recognized. And because you haven't yet recognized it, you're not yet grateful for it, you can't transform it into the form that you desire. Let me say that again. When we are grateful for the form that it's already in, we have the power to transform it into the form that we desire. All right, so secret number 3 is to be the person who already has that thing that you're desiring. See, this comes from a field of study known as ontology. It's the study of being. Most of us live our life from a place of do, have, be. or have do be. In other words, I'm gonna do this thing, I'll do the work, and then I'll have the money, and when I have the money, then I'll be successful. Or we say, once I have the partner, the spouse, then I'll do the things that partner or spouse would love, and then I'll be in a loving relationship. Well, in actuality, in ontology, what we find is that beingness, who we are, how we show up in our life, who we be, which I understand is a weird phrase that confuses most people because we don't use it very often, but who we be actually changes what we do and have in greater magnitude and momentum. In other words, we get more of what we want faster by being the person who's gonna already have it. Let me explain to you a simple example of what this looks like when applied. When I was on the come up in my industry, one of my first goals was to make 6 figures a year. So every day I got up and I started asking myself, what would a 6-figure earner do? When I ran into challenges in my business, I would ask myself, okay, how would a 6-figure earner solve this problem? When there was things that I needed to do and I wasn't sure how to do them, I would ask myself, okay, how would a 6-figure earner approach this? I can remember specifically there was an event that I knew that I really needed to go to in order to have a breakthrough in my business, but at the time it was tight financially. Things were tight financially. I wasn't quite sure that I could afford it. And so I sat there and I asked myself, well, what would a 6-figure earner do about this? And you know what? You know what came to me instantly? Well, a 6-figure earner would figure out a way to make it happen. They're not going to sit around and go like, oh, well, I just don't have the money, so I guess I won't go. But that's what, 4-figure earner, 5 earner Keala at the time would have done. So immediately I got into action, I got into problem solving mode, and I made it to that event and I had a major breakthrough. When I eventually had the 6-figure income, I started asking myself, what would a 7-figure earner do? When I had the 7-figure income, I started asking myself, what would an 8-figure earner do? Now that I have an 8-figure income, I ask myself often, what would a 9-figure earner do? And think about what's happening here is I am stepping into that inevitable future and I'm grabbing, hold of that version of myself that lives in that, quote unquote unknown future. And I'm grabbing a hold of that person, I'm bringing them into the present, and I'm showing up as that person right here, right now, today, which changes the actions and behaviors that I'm gonna take because I'm basically making a quantum leap into the future and bringing my future self into the present. So one way that you might apply this is ask yourself, that's that person that you want to attract into your life. Well, who does that person actually want to be in a relationship with? Who is that man or woman most likely to marry? And then ask yourself, well, how can I be that person today? That business that you're trying to build or that income you're trying to create. You might wake up every day and ask yourself, how would that CEO of that company show up? How would that CEO solve this problem? How would that CEO create some extra revenue? And start becoming that person that has the thing that you already desire having. Because at the end of the day, we don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. I hope you got value out of all of the content in this video, my friend. And if you did, make sure that you go ahead and click like and subscribe and click the little bell notification so that you get notified every time that I roll out more content like this. I'm grateful and honored to be of value and service to you today, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video, my friend. Go ahead and click subscribe, turn on that bell notification, and I'll see you down the road. Take care.